I'm Dr. Robert Zeev, and this is Healthy Medicine, your show about intelligent, scientific, common sense medicine and strategies for effective, affordable health care. Hi, everyone. We're glad you're joining us today. Those of you who've listened to the show before know that what I do is bring on really cutting-edge thinkers and doers in healthcare nationally. And much that's in healthcare today, as you might have heard in other shows as well as reading on the internet, can get very complex, with many different facets as far as doing tests and how do I take this medicine and what's this for and how do I interpret this and so forth, because a lot of the illnesses that we have today can tend to be very complex in order to work with. But there's a few things that I have run across in my travels that are so simple and yet at the same time so profound in their effect. And sometimes I read these things and I learn about them, and I, on one hand, wonder how I could have missed it. And on the other hand, my intellectual mind says, how can I believe this is because it's so simple? And so today is such a show. Rarely today do we see people like the person who developed the process that we're going to talk about today, who are real scientists. We talk about today medicine is science, but in reality, much of medicine is not science. Science in the sense of observing something, of drawing conclusions based on one's observations, of developing a methodology or a product to manifest the observations, and then observing the results and refining it and refining it. And that's what this process is about today. And so there's a quality of genius in this, and I do hope you appreciate this as we go along. The name of the book is Earthing, E-A-R-T-H-I-N-G, the most important health discovery yet. And the book was written by three individuals, Clint Ober, Stephen Sinatra, M.D., and Martin Zucker. And we're going to be interviewing two of the three authors today. And first up, we have Martin Zucker. Martin is a journalist. He's written extensively on natural healing and fitness and alternative medicine for over 30 years. He has been a co-author in many books, and he's also written many video scripts for the National Safety Council. And he's also been a co-author of books such as Reverse Heart Disease Now and other books, and including Natural Hormone Balance for Women. So, Martin, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be on your program, and you hit the nail right on the head when you're talking about something that's scientific, that's affordable, and simple. Earthing is something so very, very simple. It's remarkably simple, and it's nothing more than the surface energy of the Earth, Mother Earth. It has been discovered teems with natural, subtle electric energies, and earthing refers to the discovery of significant, and when I say significant, underline that and put it in capital letters, of significant health benefits that result from contact, barefoot contact with these energies by walking barefoot outside, by simply going out in your backyard and taking a chair and putting your bare feet on the ground, walking on the ground outside, as humans have done throughout history, or sitting, working, or sleeping indoors, connected to conductive systems that transfer this energy from the ground into the body.
Okay, so let me ask you then, what is it that walking on the ground does? What's the purpose? Why what's the concept here? What's the science?
The concept here is that the Earth is alive with electrons, with a very subtle electric energy. And throughout history, humans have walked barefoot, and they've been in contact with this energy. They've evolved on this energy. And we human beings, as all animals, are bioelectrical in nature. That is, our bodies work electrically. Our heart, our immune system, our nervous system, they all work electrically.
I think what you say there is so important because a lot of times people perceive themselves pretty much physically. You know, they got to get the building blocks in. You got to get enough magnesium in. You got to get enough vitamin D. And while all those are important, if the electric mechanisms of the body are off, a lot of these nutrients are not going to get utilized like our bodies need to utilize them. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely. It seems to us and my colleagues and the researchers who are involved here with the Earthing Project that the body needs this primordial, this evolutionary signal from the Earth. We evolved with it. And the cells in our body all work within a range of frequencies. And by being separated from this signal, as we have been in recent years, because we wear insulative shoes. Keep in mind that the shoes that we wear are plastic-soled or rubber-soled, and that's insulative. It doesn't allow these signals to be picked up by the body.
Okay.
So we feel that there is a deficiency of this ground signal, and when the body is deficient in this ground signal, all kinds of negative things may be happening in the body. One of the things you have noticed as a physician is the significant, the alarming increase in inflammatory diseases in recent decades. And what we say is that what we ask is this rise in inflammatory diseases the result of the body not being in contact with the earth, because these electrons that are present on the surface of the earth that we pick up if we're barefoot, these electrons have a negative charge. Electrically speaking, they have a negative charge.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come into the body, they reduce or neutralize or offset or counteract the positively charged free radicals that are at the basis of runaway chronic inflammation. And as you know, medical science is now saying chronic inflammation is the cause of everything.
So in other words, are you saying there that walking on the earth, if one was able to do that for half an hour, 40 minutes a day, is basically like taking a whole handful of antioxidants?
Well, probably more than taking a handful of antioxidants. Certainly the two go hand in hand. But it's interesting. Gary Schwartz is professor of psychology and medicine at the University of Arizona,
mm-hmm.
and he's author of the energy healing experiments. You possibly know him.
I do. Uh-huh.
He says that earthing may be as fundamental as sunlight, air, water, and nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that this is an overlooked, missing link in the health equation. In other words, you have to eat healthy, take good supplements, you need plenty of fresh air, good water, physical activity, and you need the earth. You need the earth's energy, just as you need the sun's energy. We talk about vitamin D being activated in the body by sunlight. We talk also about vitamin G, G being the
grounding,
ground.
Yes.
And so you have to get that by your exposure to the ground.
Okay. So in other words, earthing, another word for earthing is grounding. Tell us how this came about. What is, I know this came about through Clint Ober. Tell us a little bit about the story for a few minutes.
Clint Ober you spoke of genius earlier in your commentary, and Clint Ober is one of those people. Clint never went to high school. He was raised on a ranch in Montana at the age of about 14 or so. His father passed away, and he had to take over the reins of managing the livestock and the crops for his family. He was the oldest of 5 sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so he never went to high school. He did indeed manage that ranch for some years, and then as a young man in his 20s, he was attracted to which was at that time the fledgling cable TV business.
Right.
And he started right there at the bottom, going door to door, sinking ground rods, climbing up telephone poles, and hanging cable. And he learned a lot from that experience, and he became, in a matter of 20 years or so, one of the leading entrepreneurs in the whole cable television business, and at one time had the #1 installation and marketing cable TV company in the United States.
And then how did the earthing? What was his observations which led him to this discovery of earthing?
At the height of his career, he developed it was a root canal that went wrong, and he developed an abscess in his liver, and he almost died. And when he recovered from that experience, he decided that he wanted to find a higher calling in life, and he sold all his properties, his possessions, and he went in search of his higher calling. And he drove around the United States for 4 years looking for himself. And he found it one day right there in your neighborhood in Sedona, Arizona. And he was sitting on a park bench, watching the passing parade of tourists and people, and he noticed that they were all wearing these plastic or rubber-soled shoes, which are insulated. They separate you from the earth. And he knew in his background with cable television, all cable television does, it connects the system to the ground. And by being connected to the ground, it stabilizes the picture. You don't have any of that snow and those lines coming onto the television screen as you did prior to cable television. And as you know, all electrical systems everywhere are stabilized by ground. Electricians talk in terms of ground. And ground is what stabilizes electrical systems. And so he wondered about this. Could the lack of ground, could the lack of connection to the ground have an effect on health? And to make a long story short, it indeed did. And he did a number of experiments on himself just by making a makeshift metallic duct tape grid on his bed, connecting a wire to a ground rod outside that he put outside his bedroom window. And he laid down on that, and for the first time in years, he was able to fall asleep without taking a painkiller.
And I know he also told stories of people he knew that were severely ill, like with rheumatoid arthritis and other things, and he would just hook up something with one of these people's beds, and a week later their pain would be dramatically less. He was not selling a product at that time.
No, he was not. And first he started on himself, experimenting with himself, and he found that he could fall asleep without a painkiller. And he hadn't been able to do that for 20 years because of injuries to his back and from skiing. And so he was able to fall asleep this way, and he was also able to, and he also observed that his pain levels went down. And he didn't know what to make of it, so he told some of his friends about it, and some of them with sleep issues, with insomnia, and with pain issues of their own, said, please make me a bed, a grid like that for my bed. And he did. He just cobbled together some metallic duct tape and took an alligator clip and put a wire on it and connected it to a ground rod outside. And he did this for several of his friends, and they all came back amazed that simple little contraption was able to enable them to sleep better, and their pain levels went down.
Pain levels went down. So that was the first big thing that he observed that was a common thing, that pain levels started to go down. Martin, we're at about a point where I want to take a break, and then I want to continue to explore this with you in more depth in part 2 of the show, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
My pleasure.
So we'll be back with Healthy Medicine Radio, interviewing Martin Zucker on this really important and amazing topic called earthing on Healthy Medicine. Hi, this is Dr. Zeban. We're back on part 2 of Healthy Medicine Radio, and we're talking about earthing, EARTHING. That's the name of the book. And another word for it is grounding, as we've heard. The most important health discovery ever, ? Written by Clint Ober, Stephen Sinatra, MD, who's an integrative cardiologist, and Martin Zucker. Martin, let me just ask you some practical things here if people wonder about in terms of being able to walk on the earth and be in touch with and receive the electrons and start to have the system get balanced with that. What other kinds of materials, grass or cement or concrete or, talk about that a little bit.
We tell people who don't believe this that what they need to do is to go out into their yards or if they have beach access, which you don't have in Arizona. But grass is good, sand is good, dirt is good, gravel is good, stone is good, concrete is good, unpainted concrete is good. All of those conduct the Earth's energy, conduct this electron flow that's omnipresent on the surface of the Earth. And just be there barefooted on that surface. Try it for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. If you have any pain, if you have any stress, sit there or walk or stand, and you will notice in that 30 or 40 minutes that your pain level goes down and your stress level goes down and you feel more energized. It's an amazing, simple, natural, free experience. It's there for anybody to avail themselves.
Okay.
To. You don't have to spend a cent.
Great. And I know that there's also been some evidence, some studies that have been done before and after grounding, whether it is, examples of grounding like we were just talking about there, or the devices that people can buy for their homes on, for example, cortisol levels or melatonin levels, that objective or heart rate variability, that objective measurements have been done to look at how the body improves in these situations. Is that correct?
That's true, and here's the scientific aspect of what you were speaking about earlier. There have been about a dozen studies now, and published to date, more coming in 2011, that show magnificent results from this simple exposure to the Earth's electrical energy. And Dr. Sinatra will be coming on your program shortly to tell you about what excites him. He describes this as the most important health breakthrough in his nearly 40 years of practicing medicine. But I'll let him explain that. What we find from the science, and these studies have been published in scientific journals, is that there's a reduction of stress markers in the body, including cortisol, the stress hormone. So if your cortisol level is high or irregular, that's going to interfere with sleep, for instance. And most people who ground themselves, who sleep grounded on these conductive sheets, they find that their sleep is deeper, they're able to fall asleep faster, and they have more vivid dreams. It's pretty much across the board that this happens. And it also, the studies also show, and the observations show, that there's a major reduction or elimination in chronic pain. And in people who have inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid or even autoimmune conditions like lupus and fibromyalgia, conditions like that, or multiple sclerosis, there's a great promise here for relief, and we get wonderful feedback from people who are sleeping grounded. There's also an increase in energy. There's a lowering of stress and promoting of calmness in the body. So there's wonderful things happening as a result of the body's electrical system being normalized and the inflammation being put out.
Yeah, and I know some people will think, like, I thought that this is just sort of too simple to be true, and that a lot of times, people can believe something is going to work, and that belief or placebo effect can, therefore, their pain can go down because they believe it's going to work. But this has also been reproduced in animals, right, where the placebo effect doesn't really come into play, right? That a lot of people have now seen animals improving with this technology.
There's the first major animal study will be published next year, and I can assure you that it's going to knock your socks off because it shows that there's an improvement in the markers of metabolic syndrome, which is related to, which is a forerunner of diabetes and cardiovascular disease and even cancer. So the effects on the body are major and very, very, very significant.
Yeah, and just let me ask you, is it okay to ask you where, if the listener wants to, assuming the listener wants to not work on grounding or earthing primarily through walking several times a day in the grass, if the listener is a busy person, they want to buy certain products that are enable them to do this in their home, how does one do that? Is there a website?
Yes, there is. We really encourage people to read the book, Earthing, the Most Important Health Discovery Ever, and we have a question mark at the end of that because we believe that this is something so significant. So it's so natural and it's so primordial. The earth, we say, is really a treatment table, and it does so many things. And the best thing that people can do is to sleep grounded because they're not doing anything anyway. So why not sleep on a treatment table? And so these conductive sheets, and they're very simple to use. You just place them over your bottom sheet, or as long as you sleep on them and some bare skin contact is made with that conductive sheet, and then you can plug it into the ground port. That's the third hole in your electrical outlet. Into the ground port. It doesn't run by electricity. It just runs by the Earth's energy, which is available in that ground port, the third hole. You can plug it in there, or you can connect it to a ground rod outside. And these products can be purchased at www.earthing.com. And the idea is to sleep grounded and to do it routinely. The longer you can sustain this, the better. And ideally, you would want to do this for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Unless you live in an area where you can start or have a lifestyle where you can be outside barefoot a lot more.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But sleeping grounded is the best prescription, we believe anyway, because that's when the body naturally goes through its rest and repair and restoration cycles. And what you're doing by being grounded is you're enhancing that whole process.
I see. So by having the earthing sheet and you're getting increased electrons while you're sleeping, while you're in that repair stage, and that's where you use the electrons the best in the repair stage.
Well, you're not busy doing other things, and so you're laying there anyway. So as you say, people are busy. So during the night they're not busy, and this is a time to get a treatment while you're sleeping. You're restoring your body's natural electrical state. You're introducing these quadrillions of electrons into the body, which are snuffing out the inflammation. So you're doing a big treatment to your body as you sleep.
What kind
and
you're sleeping
better?
Yes, and what kind
of sleeping better?
Yeah, and sleeping better. I understand. Tell us just in our last minute or two here what kind of receptivity you're getting in the scientific world, quote unquote scientific world.
People, particularly doctors like you, are very attracted to this because of the naturalness of it, and as soon as they experience it themselves, the aha goes off, and then the light bulb goes out, and they say, "Oh my God, this is so simple, it's so remarkable, it's so beautiful," and it is. This is Mother Nature. I mean, this is Mother Earth. When I'm sitting here looking outside the window into my backyard, and I see the earth out there, I'm almost laughing because out there is a treatment table, and I can go walk out there barefooted. I'm also sitting at my computer when I'm writing, and I have my bare feet on an earthing mat, which people can also get at that website I gave you, www.earthing.com. There's a mat that you can have at your desk. You put your bare feet on it, or you can have it while you're watching television. Put your bare feet on it, and it's as if the earth is inside your house.
Great. Martin, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your sharing this with you. And so I think what we'll do now is move to talk with Dr. Stephen Sinatra, and we'll go ahead and speak with him. But I really appreciate your input, and this is a wonderful book. This is, I think, a revolutionary book. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye, Martin. And now we're going to talk with one of the other authors of the book Earthing, and his name is Stephen Sinatra. He's a medical doctor. He's a board-certified cardiologist and certified psychotherapist with more than 30 years of experience. He's a fellow of the American College of Cardiology and an assistant clinical professor of medicine at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine, and a former chief of cardiology and medical education at Manchester Memorial Hospital. He's written a number of books that are very well received and very good, including Reverse Heart Disease Now and Lower Your Blood Pressure in 8 Weeks. So, Stephen, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so, I mean, from a cardiologist perspective, what got you, or just as a professor of medicine, what got you interested in this book, in this topic?
Well, you know, being a cardiologist for years, it's a simple fact that, you know, the heart is the most electrical organ in the body. In fact, I used to teach electrocardiography, which is, you know, reading electrocardiograms to UConn students. And you know, grounding was such a perfect fit because when Clint Ober approached me about 10 years ago, and, you know, in the book we talk about this, how he got the door slammed in his face from other scientists and doctors, and he was like a salmon swimming upstream. And then when he approached me, and I said, oh, my God, this is unbelievable. This is incredible stuff. And, I mean, for me, it was just like an aha moment that, you know, the energy from the earth would be so healing to the body. But I had no scientific data to really, you know, base that on. So I said to Clint, this is like 10 years ago, I said, what you need to do with your grounding hypothesis is you need to do some experiments in the animal model and the human model and demonstrate that the Mother Earth energy will reduce inflammation. So that was 10 years ago, and then he did it. He actually put together multiple experiments with multiple, you know, PhDs, MDs. I even participated in 2 of those experiments over the last 3 years. In fact, one of those papers is coming out on heart rate variability in a couple of months in a major medical journal, and another one I just submitted. But long story short, he did what I asked him to do, and now these experiments are being reproduced in Europe and other places in the world. So this grounding is no fluke, I can tell you that. This is really serious stuff, and the good news is it's an incredible healing modality for the body because it does reduce inflammation, improve blood flow, improve you know, tissue oxygenation of the body. So
how do you know?
It's the greatest discovery ever.
Great. And how do you know it reduces inflammation?
Well, you can, you know, the thermograms, they're in the book where, you know, you can take a body image with these thermograms. And, you know, the brighter the color, for example, if a lot of orange and red come up, it shows inflammation. You can also determine blood flow in these images. For example, in diabetics who have a compromised blood flow to their hands and feet, you can take an image and then ground them, and then a few hours later, the subsequent image will show better tissue penetration.
I see.
And everything's being oxygenated. That's why diabetics feel so much better with grounding. Their polyneuropathy improves, their ulcers improve, their pain in their extremities improves because, you know, grounding actually thins the blood. And I participated in that experiment myself.
Yeah, and this thinning of the blood, of course, goes along with a lot. It's the other twin that goes along with a lot of chronic inflammation. This whole concept of hypercoagulation, that the blood gets too thick. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, and in fact, you know, being a cardiologist, we were privy to the the Framingham studies that were done in the late 40s, early 50s in New England, which demonstrated that cigarette smoking and high blood lipids and high blood sugar and high uric acid in the blood, even high blood pressure, these were all situations that increase the incidence of heart attack and heart disease. But if you look at all those risk factors, they all thicken the blood. And what we know now, in the year 2010, that thickened blood or red ketchup blood as opposed to red wine blood really is the essence of inflammation, and it's the sequelae of inflammation. And what happens is when you have thick blood, then any illness, whether it's neurodegenerative, Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, cancer, arthritis, metabolic syndrome, diabetes, whatever the illness is, they have thick blood. So when we demonstrated that grounding improves zeta potential, or the force between red blood cells, to me it was the greatest discovery. I mean, I was like absolutely in awe. And for me as a cardiologist, I have to tell you, it was the greatest discovery I've ever made.
And
ever made in my entire lifetime.
Is the concept of zeta potential a concept that's accepted in regular medicine today?
They really don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's like when I submitted this paper to the American Journal of Cardiology and Circulation, the two greatest, heart journals in the world, they turned the paper down. They really didn't understand it. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I thought this was like Nobel Prize material. And I say that with humility, but I have to tell you, if you can thin the blood, it's just by walking on concrete or walking on the grass or sand for that matter, that's huge in one's health. I mean, that's so big, it's unbelievable. But the conventional medical establishment, I think, doesn't get it. We're still probably 5 to 10 years ahead of our time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you met a true scientist. I was talking to Martin about this, that how Clint was, a real scientist. He made an observation, and then he proved it in studies to see. He made conclusions. He refined it. And you had the openness as a cardiologist to be able to see true genius when it was in front of you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to me, it was like music to my ears. So maybe it's no fluke that I became a cardiologist, because maybe this is the step I was supposed to take in my life, is really use my cardiological training as really a stepping stone to using grounding, and again, it's just a perfect fit because I understand it.
So let's explore the examples you gave of diabetics. Have you seen, for example, in diabetics, you've seen wounds, non-healing wounds in diabetics improve significantly when a person is sleeping on a grounding sheet, for example?
Absolutely. Bed sores, or diabetic sores where you have poor circulation. The blood is not reaching the tissue. That's why, unfortunately, diabetics get toe amputations, even below the knee amputations. It's a horrible illness, and I lived with it for years because my mom had diabetes. And when you do ground, what you're doing is you're soaking up the electrons from the earth, and you're balancing the positive charge we have in our body. We have an excess positive charge from all the free radicals and oxidative stress in the environment. The environment is very toxic in 2010, whether it's heavy metals or toxic EMF or bad vibrations or insecticides or pesticides. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. But when you take a diabetic with a compromised circulation and then throw on a toxic environment on top of that with all its positive charge, you got to neutralize it. And once you bring all these electrons to the table from walking barefoot or sleeping grounded, now you're going to balance the positive charge. And when you do that, you're going to sequester free radicals and make the blood thinner. And when that happens, then the tissue is better oxygenated. Nutrients are reaching the cells, and the tissues improve. And that's why bed sores improve with grounding.
Yeah, I know also cell membrane potential. There are measurement devices to measure cell membrane potential, the gradient across the cell membrane, and often I think normal is like -70 to -90. A lot of cancer patients, it's -20. Has anyone done any research with earthing to see how it increases the gradient across cell membrane potential?
I don't think that's been done.
It would be a good project, yeah.
Yeah, it would be a great project because that's really the essence of health. I mean, what you described. I mean, see, what you just described is that the body is electrical. I mean, people think we're flesh and bones. I mean, to a degree we are, but beyond that, we're electrical beings. And every cell in our body contains a voltage, positive or negative charge. And the greater the voltage in the cell, the more pulsation it has and the more health it has. So when cells lack voltage, what happens is that they become diseased, and eventually disease and pathology sets in. And with lower voltage, temperature drops in the cell. And when temperature drops, then we get microbial invasion, we get viruses, we get microbes, we get bacteria, and then all of a sudden the cell becomes sick and then drops out, and then we get tissue death, and that's how it happens.
Good. Okay, let's take our second break of the show, of this show on healthy medicine. We're talking now with Dr. Stephen Sinatra on earthing, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Dr. Zeev, and we're back on Healthy Medicine on the final segment, and we have the honor of interviewing Dr. Stephen Sinatra. He's a board-certified cardiologist, a fellow of the American College of Cardiology, and assistant professor of clinical medicine at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine. He's one of the co-authors of this book called Earthing, which is such a simple and profound topic, which has an increasing amount of research behind it and clinical observations. And I was just telling Stephen at the break how, when I first saw this book and looked at it several times, it was hard for me to believe the simplicity of it, that nobody had come across this before. And it was just like, Stephen, you were talking about when you were first talking to Clint and a light went off in your head, like a big missing piece.
Absolutely. I mean, when Clint discussed his research with me, I mean, I was just all over it. I mean, it just made perfect sense. And that's why the combination of Clint and myself being a cardiologist, it was just unbelievable. And when I did the research on what we call the zeta potential, which is really the force between red blood cells,
right.
You think of it this way. Everybody's been in a traffic jam before, Now, if your blood is like a traffic jam and it's stuck, I mean, that's not good. Unfortunately, a lot of people that we've tested, with dark field analysis and zeta potential, their blood is like poker chips, we call it rouleau formation of red blood cells. And then what happens with zeta potential is, think of a highway where the cars are passing one another. Well, if your red blood cells have that velocity between them, that's what you want. And so your blood is like red wine. And the thinner your blood, the better it is. And I'm just amazed. I am absolutely amazed that when you do bring grounding to the table, this is why people, they not only sleep better, but it supports inflammation in the sense that it improves blood supply, it improves the zeta potential. It also relaxes you because, everybody has what we call autonomic, hyperactivity today.
Fight or flight.
And what we mean by that is basically our nervous system is on constant guard or vigilance, or, we're ready for the other shoe to drop, and we're stressed and we have anxiety and fear. What grounding does, it stimulates the vagal nerve and it balances the autonomic nervous system. And when that happens, we get heart rate variability that's supported. And that's another research project I did, and that's the paper that's coming out in about 2 or 3 months.
So when you say it stimulates, in other words, the research you've done demonstrates how grounding enhances vagal nerve function, which is the parasympathetic system, which helps us relax internally.
Exactly. And, it's almost like a lie detector test. When people tell a lie when they're being recorded, the autonomic nervous system knows the truth, and you can't fake it. Well, about 98% of these tests are valid. And we showed that in grounding, within 2 seconds, you get a change in skin conductance. And we showed that after 40 minutes, you get thinning of the blood. And we showed that after, I think, approximately 1 hour, we showed an improvement in heart rate variability. So it's absolutely mind-boggling by putting your feet on the ground what it does to the body.
Yeah. So, and also I want to stress one of the things you said in the second part of the interview, and that was that it's probably going to be a good 5 or 10 years before regular medicine really sees the value of this. And so I think what I wanted to say about that is to our listeners is that really think about this and act on it. And even though your doctor may not right now be aware of it or might not recognize it as scientifically valid, is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, sometimes the greatest cures frequently are staring us in the face. I mean, if you eat organic food and healthy food, non-inflammatory food, avoid the sugars, drink healthy, vibrant waters. There's certain supplements out there that are really outstanding, and grounding is just one of them. I mean, these are natural cures that are free and basically anybody can do. And I just believe that when you bring earthing to the table, now you're shifting your body in so many different directions of healing that it supports healing, and that's why we should be doing it. And the other thing too is that there's a lot of bad vibrations out there from cordless phones and cellular phones and cell phone towers, and grounding is going to help balance that negative electromagnetic and RF radio frequency stress that we're all being bombarded with.
Yeah, so let me ask you about that since you introduced it. What you've seen in people, because there's a growing number of people that are really electromagnetically sensitive. Some people can't even live; they have to live in the forest. Other people have to turn the electricity off in their house. You're saying that sleeping on these grounding wires, even though you're plugging something into the outlet, is still going to decrease electromagnetic field sensitivity in many patients.
Yeah, but see, however, if the patient's electrosensitive, I would prefer that they sleep grounded but use a steel rod in the earth. Because when we connect to the ground of the home, or for example, I'm in Las Vegas now at a conference. I brought a grounding sheet with me, and I plug it into a socket, and the socket's properly grounded. So I'm grounded. I'm grounded right now, talking to you. I'm sitting on my bed here in my room, and I'm grounded. However, if I was electrically sensitive, I might feel that energy. So these people are so sensitive that I prefer using the Earth's energy coming from a steel rod in the earth, and it's connected to a wire, and that wire is connected to a sheet, cotton sheet that has silver threads in it, so it has good conductivity. But what's happening is the electrons are coming up right through the rod, or if it's a plug-in into the socket, the grounded socket, the same thing occurs. But if you are electrosensitive, I prefer, quote, natural grounding more than grounding to the electrical nature of the building.
And the rods you're talking about are available on the Earthing website?
Yes. Oh, yeah. The Earthing website is good for, then another website is grounding.com and opthealth.com. And there's several websites you can go to. And what Clint Ober has done is he's been regulating these websites. So, there's not some wild vigilantes out there selling equipment that isn't the proper equipment.
Yeah, I know, because I understand. What have you seen, to return a little bit to cardiology? What have you seen with, patients with, angina or with atrial fibrillation, things like that?
I'll tell you, great question. Unfortunately, I'm not practicing cardiology on a day-to-day basis. I actually retired a couple of years ago when my son became electrosensitive, and this is another reason why it's been placed in my path, is because my son was so sick. He lost over 100 pounds from electrosensitivity, and he went from doctor to doctor to doctor. It was a mess. But basically, I used to perform cardiac catheterizations, which means putting a tube in the femoral artery, and it goes inside the heart, and we inject contrast material, and the heart arteries would light up like a tree, so to speak, and we would see blockages in these vessels. But I got to tell you, I've done thousands of angiograms, and we used to do angiograms after a heart attack, and I saw so many angiograms where a person had a heart attack, where they had a wall motion abnormality, damage to the ventricle of the heart, but they had normal coronary arteries. And I used to think time and time again, they had coronary spasm. And basically, knowing what I know now is that there are so many people with ketchup blood that if that blood sticks in the coronary vessel, you get a heart attack. If it sticks in the and you may not have a lesion or a plaque rupture or even arterial sclerosis. So if I had a patient with angina right now, I would tell them to put their feet on the ground, and you can chew an aspirin. You can call 911 if you think you're having a heart attack. But knowing what I know now, if you had arrhythmia or chest pain or shortness of breath, I would put my feet on the ground.
So what
if it doesn't improve, just call for help.
So what you're saying then, if I can correct me on this, but what I'm hearing you say is that with all the exposure we have to heavy metals and chemicals and chronic infections and pharmaceuticals and bad foods, the blood
and EMF, yep.
and electromagnetic fields, that the blood gets thick, and that's a much more important problem in chronic disease, let's say even in cardiology here, than is just the development of plaque or having a high cholesterol or whatever. It's the thickness and the inflammation that really, and that the grounding can really decrease.
Exactly, you said it really good. Look, cholesterol is a joke. It's a joke when you compare. Everybody's focused on high cholesterol in the country, but geez, I mean, high cholesterol is only like one slice of the pie when it comes to thickening the blood. I mean, one of the reasons why, and you're a doctor, you know this. One of the reasons why that low HDL, very low HDL, is such a serious risk factor in a male, is that the lower your HDL, the thicker your blood.
Yeah.
But pharmaceutical companies don't tell you that. They tell you to raise the HDL with certain drugs, but basically low HDL predisposes you to what we call thickened blood viscosity. So, as a doctor right now and as a healer, my mission right now is to get people grounded so I can thin their blood. Now, there's one contraindication, and that's if a patient's taking Coumadin, because we found that people who ground and on Coumadin at the same time, well, then their blood gets too thin. So we always recommend that if a person is on Coumadin, that they have to work very closely with their doctor, and a lot of these people have to take less Coumadin because the grounding raises, the thinness of the blood as well.
So will their blood test change? Because I know people on Coumadin have blood tests done called ProTimes and INRs. Will those change once?
They go way up.
Okay,
yeah, and I had so many anecdotal cases when I was, experimenting with this over the years. Even when I was seeing patients on a day-to-day basis, I've been grounding patients for the last 7-8 years, and I've obviously been grounded for the last 10 years, ever since I met Clint Ober. And I have to tell you that even myself in my office, somebody would come in with an iron or 2, then they'd be grounding, it'd be 4.5, and I would so I learned by accident, and then we did the studies on zeta potential, and I said, wow, grounding thins the blood. I think the average is 2.8 times more than any other intervention that we know about.
So when you're saying the zeta potential, means the red blood cells will repel themselves, so the blood will be less thick, and so that's the reason the person can start to wean off the Coumadin with their physician's support.
Oh yeah, only with their physicians.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other thing too, even in my newsletter this month, I talked about the dangers of Coumadin. Coumadin is a vitamin K2 antagonist.
Yeah.
And physicians right now, they need to not overprescribe Coumadin, because your blood vessels can calcify within a few years, and especially if you're a young person. So, my gosh, if we could find an alternative to Coumadin. Now, look, if you have a prosthetic valve or a pacemaker, or if you have a very large left atrium, you have to take Coumadin. You have to. But when people who are on the cusp, where they, it's a toss-up whether they take it or not. Right now, I'm telling my newsletter subscribers, don't take it, and talk to your doctor before you take Coumadin, especially if you're a questionable case.
So I know there were some also examples that were given in, for example, neurologic disorders, some patients with multiple sclerosis that notice improvement. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and even a captain I know, he had multiple sclerosis, and even when I was walking with him after he docked the boat, I was noticed as limping, and I basically put him on 10,000 units of vitamin D and had him sleep grounded. And within a month, he improved significantly. And then we have, and he's not even in the book. I mean, and then there's other case studies in the book. So again, whatever the illness is, and Lyme disease. Now we've seen a lot of Lyme disease really improve with grounding. Now the other thing I have to point out is, if you're a very toxic person, and by toxic I mean if you're full of heavy metals or Lyme spirochetes, or you have serious inflammation. When you ground, you may get a Hertz reaction, which means that...
Explain what that is. Yeah.
Basically, it's a detox reaction where you may get headache, you may get insomnia, you may get tingling, you may get cramps in your muscles. So we've had very toxic people who had detoxification reactions on grounding, and I had to pull back. In other words, instead of sleeping with a sheet, I would tell them to ground a couple of hours, with your feet on a sheet or on the ground or on a pad. In other words, instead of grounding 12 hours a day, I want you to ground 2 or 3 hours a day. Get your body used to it, and that's really important. So the more toxic you are, if you do ground, you may experience some symptoms.
Right,
but and detox symptoms, which are good.
And right, they're good, and also some people can support themselves with drinking more water, doing Epsom salts baths, things like that to support and taking homeopathic remedies to support so that they don't get those kind of severe reactions.
Right, very good point.
Yeah. So in general, where is this going now? Where's earthing going nationally and internationally?
Well, boy, you're asking really great. I love the questions you're asking. These are great questions because I've done a lot of radio on the grounding. Right now, I'm not trying to convince anybody about grounding. I think grounding is going to take its own energy, so to speak, no pun intended. It's going to find itself. So, when I've written about 15 books, sometimes I used to hire publicists and try to get the word out. But right now the word is getting out by mouth. People are talking about this. So it's developed its own energy. And I really think that even at this conference today, I'm going to lecture to 2,000 or 3,000 doctors on earthing. And there'll be a lot of buzz generated, and a lot of doctors are skeptical, like yourself, and I was never skeptical from the beginning because it made so much sense to me.
It does have common sense. You're right. It's very common sense.
But what's going to happen here is that it'll develop its own energy, and I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see millions of people grounding themselves. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In our final few minutes here, is there something else you want to talk about specifically about what you've observed with grounding? This is applicable universally. Chronic hip pain. I've seen in the book that there was a lot of people with menstrual symptoms of many different kinds, of circulatory symptoms that improved in relatively short periods of time, right?
Oh, yeah. I would say that the most significant symptom that I've seen and that I've heard about is sleeping. People sleep so much better, and that's in the book. Basically, there's a regulation of cortisol in the body with grounding. There was a nice little scientific study that was Gailey and Associates did that one, and I've seen that a lot. I sleep a lot better, when I sleep grounded, especially when I put the rod, because in my house I have a rod in the ground. When I travel on the road, I take my grounded recovery bag with me. Sleep is really, really a problem in this country. Look, there are thousands of cell phone towers out there, and if you look at poor Michael Jackson, I mean, there's speculation, really serious theories about this, but he lived within 3 miles of 94 cell phone towers, and he had the worst insomnia of anybody. He just could not sleep. And then it was Brittany Murphy, who was an actress who died in her 30s.
Yeah.
She had like 65 cell phone towers near where she slept. So and one of the biggest prescriptions in the country right now is are sleep medications. Doctors are filling them out left and right. People can't sleep because of these cell phone towers. They lower melatonin in the brain. I mean, that's the mechanism, these toxic vibrations. And when melatonin gets lowered, you sleep less. And what grounding does is grounding regulates these dynamics, and it also puts a good vibration into your body to help offset the toxic vibration of non-harmonious chaotic waves.
And so has there been any research done on melatonin and grounding in terms of being able to measure those kind of levels? I'm just curious.
I think Clint is looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the human model, I don't know if they measured melatonin in the rat model. I don't know the answer to that. I'll tell you this, though. One of the last experiments I reviewed in the rat model and the human model, blood sugars went down.
Blood sugars went down.
A1C. So blood sugars went down in grounded rats as opposed to their ungrounded counterparts. And that's huge because look at all the diabetes we have in the country.
Well, and the other important thing with that is that if we have listeners out there that are diabetics, especially insulin-dependent diabetics, that once you start using the earthing, you have to make sure you have your blood sugar get checked frequently and have the drugs monitored by your physician, correct? Yeah.
Yes, yes. The other drug that you need to be monitored, I've seen this, even in myself. I used to take thyroid hormone.
Yeah.
But ever since I started grounding, I'm off thyroid.
Great.
But
Okay.
basically, when you ground, and if you are taking thyroid, it can sort of accentuate it, almost like Coumadin. So
Okay.
I'm totally off thyroid right now myself.
Stephen, thanks for joining us today. This went by real fast.
Hey, that was great. I really enjoyed the interview. I hope your listeners learned a lot, and it was a lot of fun talking to you, and thanks for your questions.
Okay. Stay on the line just for once we end the show.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us today. Thank you to all of our underwriters that make this show possible. Really discuss this topic with your physician, especially if you're on Coumadin or other drugs. And again, the book is Earthing, and the website is www.earthinginstitute.net. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
For more information, please contact Dr. Zeev at pinetreeclinic.com or phone 928-778-3500. Healthy Medicine is produced as a public service by ComWest Communications in partnership with KJZA-FM in Prescott, Arizona.